And hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the show. So tonight I actually have one of my good friends, and he's actually Taco from Let's Talk About something on his YouTube channel. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about The Thing, and this is actually hands down one of his favorite movies. We're gonna be doing a deep dive into it. Yes, I did do a show with Beth a couple months back, but I figured what better way to do a deep dive with somebody than with Taco because of the fact that he knows this movie inside out, like basically his palm of his hand. So let's go on ahead. Let's talk about The Thing. Hey, what's going on, Taco?
Hey, John, sup? How are you doing?
Nothing much, man. It's good to have you on here. It's good to talk about The Thing for John Carpenter's movie. Man, I know this is hands down one of your favorite films.
It is my favorite horror movie, hands down. I don't consider it like I have a couple movies that are considered perfect movies that are 10 out of 10 in every way. I don't throw it quite up there, but I easily give this movie like a 9 or 9.5. But I do think it is my absolute favorite horror movie of all time, for many reasons, which I'm sure we'll get into. Even wore my Thing shirt. I had two Thing shirts. I chose this one.
I think that's actually the classic one that's the one I like for the poster.
Yeah, I'm glad I actually grabbed it for the poster, so it's the one that I'm wearing. I have another one that's just the head with the spider tentacles out with the eyes poking out, and it says The Thing. We'll get to what all that nonsense is in a second.
But yeah, man, this to me is a perfect balance of suspense. You also have thriller. You also have half horror, all in one movie.
Yeah,
and I think it's really good, and it also has a slow pace to bring out that tension. And then once that tension is released at the end, it's fantastic.
The Thing. So John Carpenter's The Thing. What I consider its biggest triumphs. Its nihilistic tone. So the hopelessness of it, which is something that I really love, because so little movies, especially now in today's Marvel climate, and everything's all fun and quips and jokes, and even horror movies have to be funny and everyone's talking cliches. None of that is here, and it looks like nobody even likes each other. They're all just people who work at this outpost in the middle of Antarctica, and it's so, as soon as things start to go wrong, you don't have any hope for them, and they don't, and it all gets to this like part where it's like, no, we just got to make sure this creature doesn't destroy the world. So it really is about this sacrificing themselves for the entire planet, but none of it is glory, none of it is like exciting. It's just this like bloody, beat down, nihilistic, no one trusting anybody anymore. I love that tone.
Me too.
And of course, I do consider Rob Bottin, who did the special effects, I consider this the best special effects of any movie ever. And I know that that's a big claim, but I think these practical effects are the best I've ever seen. The way that they go about it, and I'm sure once we start breaking down scene for scene, I would love to nerd out about them. But the special effects, the tone, and then, of course, just John Carpenter's different way of directing. He has this really cool voyeuristic shots where he loves big, huge shots where you see everything in the room. So your eyes are constantly like, why are we looking at this wide shot? Sometimes there's something going on. Sometimes there isn't. But John Carpenter doesn't want to get close. He's always showing you his world. And those three things make this movie absolutely fantastic for me.
Most definitely. So, in scene one, basically we have the helicopter chasing a dog across the snowy Antarctic landscape. The helicopter crew fires at the dog, but it manages to reach the American research facility. And I like how it starts off with that, because at first it's somebody that's like a dog lover, an animal lover. Our first instinct is to be an asshole to the guy that is actually shooting at this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't understand why this other person's shooting at it. So you think that this person's also a maniac. And not only that, but you're also trying to protect your own crew from this maniac. So you actually have to go ahead and make your best judgment call. So they wind up shooting him and then taking the
well, one
dog
of them,
in.
the other guy blows himself up too.
Right.
Okay, so Jamie Lee, I did want. She just commented. I did want her to go watch this, but I also want her to watch this. So we're gonna spoil everything. Now that scene, I love this opening for two reasons. If you want to do yourself a favor one day, and if you're just bored and you want to watch something on YouTube, watch Rando's reactions to The Thing. There's a bunch of people who have their reactions to The Thing. They knock it down. Always in the beginning, it always starts the same way. They go, "Oh, cute puppy! Oh, look at the dog!" And I'm like, and then as soon as the guys start shooting at it, they're like, "What? Wait, what? Why is this guy trying to shoot at the dog?" And it just starts so weird and chaotic. And then one of the Norwegian guy blows himself up too. Like, it's so like, what? How did this movie just start? So here's my first hilarious behind the scenes. I don't know if you know this. So the Norwegian yells once the dog makes it to the Americans. The Norwegian yells at them in the other language, and it's not subtitled. And then the one guy, the cap, I'm forgetting names right now, but the captain breaks through the window and shoots him through the head, right? And that's how that whole. But what the Norwegian yells is in Norwegian, "Stay away from that dog. It's not a dog. It's a thing. Stay away." So Norwegian audiences knew the spoiler. So if you were watching it, you're Norwegian, you're like, "Hey, that's the monster."
But yeah, it's actually Gary who's actually the commander.
Gary. Yeah, Gary. I was trying to remember his last. Yeah, I was trying to remember his name. Yeah, Gary.
Right.
Yeah, and I love all their characters too, but Gary is great because he's a commander, but he's kind of like a blubbering oaf the whole movie. Like, he doesn't have any real leadership skills. I mean, he shoots the dude. That's one pretty good thing.
Right, but then also too, while also endangering his friends though too, without knowing that he's endangering his own friends because of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Also, who's it? Bennings gets shot in the beginning too, right? As the Norwegian shoots one of them in the leg. I want to say it's Bennings, because he has a really great line later on where he goes, "Can you turn that radio down? I got shot today," which is just a great line.
Just like it's like an everyday situation. Okay,
yeah.
Out of the
I got shot today. All right, fine.
And the thing is, okay, they don't even know each other either. They're all just people that just got stuck together.
Same job. Yeah, same job. Some of them share the same room too. Like, geez. But I bet you're making a lot of money, and a lot of it is, at least it doesn't say, but you think because of Gary that they are military, or some of them are at least. But in the original book, they all are. But the book was written in the 30s when there was still kind of a lot more patriotism when it comes to the military. And this movie came out right after Vietnam, so there was a little bit less. So there's that kind of weird feel now where, and I feel like that kind of ties into why it's not so pro-American or pro-military like the original book was. I'm going to talk about the book a lot too, and I'm sorry about that.
That's perfectly fine because I never read the book, and I didn't even know there was a book until now.
It's a really quick listen. You can find it on YouTube. You would enjoy it. I want to say it's like 30 minutes or a little more, so it's a little novella, and it's called "Who Goes There." Maybe it's a couple hours, or maybe it's an hour. It's not very long. And it was written in the 30s, and I'm not pulling the name at the top of my head, but I normally know it, but something Campbell, but it doesn't matter. It's a lot alike, but the big main differences are there's a lot more people, so there's a lot more things, and I'll get into what that means later. But it does start along the same lines, but instead of the weird shape-shifting alien, it is still a weird shape-shifting alien, but he's really a telekinetic alien, and you see his main form a lot. So he's like this three-eyed telekinetic alien that messes with your head, but also can take forms and do the thing. And besides that, there's a lot alike, except they're the ones who dig it out. Yeah, and I'll get into some of the differences later. And then after that, in the 50s, there was the Thing from the Other Thing from Another World, and that's what this is technically a remake of. But the monster in that is completely different. He's kind of more of a lumbering Frankenstein monster who's a plant-based. They call him a super carrot in it. The movie's 50s, man, but so it was more of a giant, like lumbering Frankenstein that can't die. So it's a lot different, but there is a fire stunt in the original that if you ever want to just get your mind blown, it's a guy on fire and the cast has buckets of kerosene. This is all real. None of this was special effects. It was filmed in the 50s, just throwing kerosene on this dude and fire's just getting all over everything. And I'm like, you're like, what? It's the craziest fire stunt. They're just like, just fire everywhere. And then the dude runs up the snow and like stop, drops, and rolls, and you realize that wasn't acting. That was the dude like, oh my god.
Hopefully he has good life insurance for that movie.
Yeah.
But okay, so scene 2 is basically we have the dog, and he is taken in by the research team led by Dr. Blair. They notice something strange about the dog's behavior and decide to investigate. And I also have this in my notes too. Dr. Cooper leaves to investigate the Norwegian base. Among the shared ruins and frozen corpses, they find the burnt corpses of malformed human, which they transferred to the American station. The biologist Blair autopsies and remains and finds a normal set of human organs.
Yeah. All right. So you covered a lot there. Good. Oh, yeah. So Clark hangs out with the dog. Or maybe he doesn't yet. The dog's still around. Yeah, so it's Copper and our hero, how am I forgetting? McCready.
R.J. McCready.
Yeah, R.J. McCready, which, by the way, has one of the best intros. He's playing chess with his chess computer, and then it wins, so he dumps J&B Brandy in it, and he goes, cheating bitch. So a little behind the scenes, he was working again. So if you zoom the camera out, on the other side of the computer was a blow-up doll. And there's this picture of the behind the scenes where he's talking to the blow-up doll that you can't see. And it's like, what were they up to when they're filming this movie? It's a really funny behind the scenes picture of just like a blow-up doll in the scene. Like, what the
But it actually works, though, if you think about it. They're isolated. They don't have anyone to talk to.
He probably has one.
So it adds to it.
And the voice of his chess machine is Adrienne Barbeau, who was John Carpenter's wife, who was in a bunch of movies, and I love Adrienne Barbeau. But so the thing that they get from their Norwegian campsite, the fandom usually refers to as split face. So this is going to be the other source of the Thing mutation that's going to come in, right? So we already kind of spoiled, right? The dog is one, and then the other is going to be split face. So, also the 2011 prequel is the Norwegian base. So, yeah, which the movie has its ups and it has its downs. I don't like it, but I don't hate it like a lot of people. I hate that they covered up. They worked really hard on these special effects, and then they got just literally covered up by computer effects that are less good. Like the studio ruined the prequel, which sucks. But anyways, now where we at now? So Blair's doing the autopsy, and he found the normal set of human organs.
Right. But before that, I want to go back over to the camp for a second.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a little bit of foreshadowing, because they're just as shocked at the fact that they didn't know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, these people just lost their fucking minds, basically. And so that's actually a little bit of foreshadowing about what's going to happen later on for them.
If you know nothing about the movie going in, too, holy crap, does that Norwegian site set the tone where you're like, wait, what's going on? And whatever happened here is going to happen over at, like, the American site? Like, yeah, and I like, there's some really, really dark visuals, too, of the dude with the frozen blood coming from his wrist because it's so cold. Like there's some that Norwegian site's upset, dude.
It is, especially the part where you actually see the axe inside the door, which is also something that winds up happening in the other camp too. So I thought that was actually pretty interesting on how they foreshadowed that into the film as well.
Ooh, so good. All right. then so Blair was played by Diabetes Wilford Brimley, which he's so good in this. I do like that there's a scene where they're dissecting this thing where it's two faces that are molded together and there's all these arms sticking out of everywhere. And he goes, "Yep, it's normal." Want to elaborate on that one?
I think in this normal sense, it's like, well, it's a human being, and then because they didn't know exactly what it was. But I'm like, but here's the thing: as a viewer, I'm like, what do you mean by it's normal? That thing is not any close to being normal. Yeah, it has normal organs like humans do, but it's not actually normal.
So yeah, absolutely not. Another behind the scenes. So they the organs that he's messing with is actually like animal like deer or cow or something. But Wilford Brimley grew up on a farm, so he was like totally okay with like actually like dissecting this real animal that they did. And I just thought that was actually like, oh, oof. But I'll wait to talk about the special effects. We're not quite there yet, but I can't wait.
No, we're still pretty good into the slow tone of the film, though. But
the slow build, and I love that. There's a lot of question marks and no answers yet.
But yeah, the team also performs an autopsy on a deceased crew member and discovers that the dog was an alien organism capable of limiting other life forms.
Wait, so we jumped past the dog stuff. You just went to the dog is capable of...
Yeah, okay, so hold on. Okay, I see where I'm at.
Yeah, okay.
So then Clark nails the shed, puts the sled dog, and it soon metamorphs and absorbs several other of the station dogs.
Yeah.
The disturbance alerts the team, and Childs uses a flamethrower to incarcerate the creature.
Okay, now we can talk. All right, so so they're like, hey, can you put this dog back with the others? So he goes and puts him in the kennel. The second the human leaves, the one dog splits open all crazy and starts shooting gunk and tentacles at the other dogs. That is the first of the if you haven't seen the movie, it's the first time you're gonna go, what?
Especially the scaly things creep me out though, because of how wavy it was and how it was just going all.
The surgical tube flailing thing really gets me. But Rob Bottin did the special effects, and as I said earlier, I do think it's the best special effects of any movie. And I'm going to drop this now. I was going to wait until we get to the Norris one, but might as well just say it right away. He was 22 when he did the effects of this movie. Yes, that's right. We have wasted our lives because this guy made the special effects of this movie when he was 22 years old. Like, holy crap. So he worked, it was 52 straight days of 20-hour shifts working on this. So he was sleeping there. He's doing 20-hour shifts, and he worked 52 in a row. And then they brought in Sam Winston, who's another legendary effects guy, to help him. But Sam Winston wanted no credit because he was just following what Rob wanted. He was just helping him. And after he did the 52 days, he checked himself into a hospital just to sleep. He's like, can you knock me out, please? Which I just think is just so can I have a coma now, please? Can you just
I like a coma for one.
Yeah, holy crap. But now I said all that because even this, which is the first time you get to see a little bit of his special effects, there's these weird things jumping out that look like it's made of dog parts. There's a bunch of dog tongues that wrap up and it's this, everything is so creepy and looks so real, but he had a reason, everything's made of something that would make sense. They're all made of different animal parts, either human or dogs or the things that the Thing has imitated as of now.
And also, too, here's another thing that was actually creepy. Whenever the dog winds up trying to eat the other dogs, and the other dogs are trying to stay away from him.
Yeah.
That was also another thing. But then, of course, you wind up seeing our hero. He winds up taking a flamethrower and incarcerates the creature. So that part, to me, was kind of epic to see something like that happen.
Yeah. We skipped over something really subtle. So before they took the dog to the kennel, he does walk up to the shadow guy. So there's a guy who we don't see, and the dog walks up to a room, and you just see the silhouette of a man, and then the dog turns into him, and that's the first victim of the thing. So to that, and I'll be really quick with this one. I have all the weird theories and Easter eggs in my head. So some people think that that's either Norris or Palmer. One of the directors or one of the people who worked on it said that it was Palmer, but the shape is actually none of them. It was a completely different actor who stood in to do the silhouette, and he played a shape in a different movie because it is Dick Warlock who played Michael Myers in Halloween, also known as The Shape. So I did find it funny that they got Dick Warlock, and it's like, can you just stand in front of this wall and this dog will walk up to you? Why? Shut up. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Just do it.
We need a shape, and you're a perfect shape. But yeah, so that's that. Yeah, I want to get through that because that's our first real, if you want to say infection or takeover, before the flamethrower of the dog one. So you have, still two possible active. Now that the dog's dead, the guy, whoever the silhouette was, and the split face that is currently thawing out, right?
Right. And at this point, you wind up seeing Blair, who autopsies the dog thing, and Sunrises is an organism that can perfectly imitate other life forms. Data recovers from the Norwegian-based leads the Americans to a large excavation site in containing partly buried alien spacecraft, which Norris estimates has been buried for over 100,000 years, and a smaller human-sized dog-sized dig site. Blair grows paranoid after running a computer simulation that indicates that the creature could assimilate all life on Earth in a matter of years. The station implants control to reduce the risk of alienation.
So I love it because he puts it into the computer, and the computer is like, it will be like less than 3 years until this thing takes over everything. And then he just reaches into a drawer, and next to a bottle of booze is a gun, and he just grabs the gun. And it's like, oh my God, Wilford Brimley. It's like, time to mercy kill the world. like, what are you going to do with that gun? And the funny thing is, I think what he does is completely rational. I think cutting them out from everywhere else in the world, like sabotaging the radio, sabotaging everything, making sure nobody gets there. He pretty much murders everybody at the site. But that is what a rational person would do. It was irrational. It was crazy. Like, and everyone's like, what are you doing? But like, no, man, they can't come here. Like, no one should ever come here. We all need to cut off. And Blair, if he does get infected, there's a big debate on when he does, but I think human Blair destroys everything. I don't think he's infected as of destroying the radio.
I think he's very self-aware of the situation to the point where I'm saying this is human Blair and not the thing Blair.
Yeah, why would Thing Blair want to cut out communication? Wouldn't Thing
Blair
be trying to get a hold of them?
Yeah. Right, because of the fact that he's a shape-shifting organism, so therefore you would want him to travel to other country, travel out of this place.
Get to a city and then boom,
Right.
And then big Cronenberg monsters everywhere, like Rick and Morty. But all right. So Blair just did the computer simulation is where you're at. Let's keep moving. We got so much of the movie left.
So the remains of the malformed humanoid assimilate in isolated binnings, but Windows interrupts the process and Mech Ready burns the binnings thing. The team also imprisons Blair in a tool shed after he sabotages the vehicles, kills the remaining sled dogs, and destroys the radio to prevent escape. And Cooper suggests testing for infection by composing the crew's blood against uncontaminated blood held in storage. But after learning the blood stores have been destroyed, the men lose faith in Gary's leadership.
Okay. Lots to unpack there. So we're going to get to the mystery of who sabotaged the blood. So if you rewatch the Bennings thing getting assimilated, you hear Windows has the keys and he's like twirling them. And then when he sees Bennings like getting wrapped up in an alien, he drops them and you hear the keys drop. So we do know the keys drop there. So he does claim that he gave them back to him at some point, but we do hear the keys drop. The Bennings thing is the first really terrifying. You see him come up, but he's not fully assimilated. Like his hands are still kind of messed up and he's like running and they all see him and he can't speak yet. Like he's not fully assimilated. So the Bennings thing puts out this really crazy scream as they like blowtorch or like a flamethrower him and blow him up. Like, oh my God. That's like your first time when you're like, okay, what is really going on? And then they lock up Blair, as we said, which we'll get back to the tool shed. There's a lot of crazy stuff that happens in that tool shed. And then they come up with the idea of mixing the blood. Then we see that the blood has been sabotaged. Again, no one knows. Like, there's a lot of theories. And whenever I say this, the movie doesn't answer these questions. And that's what I love. The movie will never doesn't tell you who gets eliminated and when, or who does these things like
or
sabotaging.
Why.
Yeah, or why. So I would think one of the things sabotaged the blood, but I don't know which one at this point. I would assume Palmer is a thing at this point, maybe. Spoilers. And we know Bennings was, but he didn't have a time to go do it. I heard a lot of people think that Blair did, but I don't think Blair would have, even though he's been sabotaging everything else. I don't buy that. Why would he want to sabotage the blood? And if he was a thing, then I would understand why Blair Thing would want to sabotage the blood, but why would he want to sabotage the radio? So,
right,
yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But we understand why they would sabotage the blood. Like you said, we'll get into the blood thing in a minute, too, because at first, as an audience, when you're seeing that, it's like, well, why did they destroy the blood and everything, too? Because of like, okay, how does that make sense? But once you wind up finding out whenever they do the test on each other, it does make sense after that.
Yeah. Well, they want to, at this point, mix their blood with non-contaminated blood to see if there's a reaction. And that's why they went and destroyed whatever thing did it, destroyed the non-contaminated blood now. But again, it does play into one of my favorite scenes of all time, which is later on. Yeah.
Right. And Knowles investigates MacReady's shack during the return. Knowles abandons MacReady in a snowstorm, believing he has been assimilated after finding his torn clothes in the shack.
Mm-hmm. So the thing is not only sabotaged the blood, but he knows that MacReady is competent. He's one of the few competent people, and also Gary. So as you said earlier, they lost faith in Gary. Gary tried to give control over to Norris, and Norris is like, "I'm not up to it." And then they said, "All right, then MacReady," because MacReady he's the sexiest man in the world. He's Kurt Russell with that beard and that hair. I have such a crazy, massive man crush on this Kurt Russell.
Because he's so manly whenever he's doing all this stuff, though, too.
Gorgeous.
It's like, who would you want as a leader?
Yeah, you want that. You want the helicopter pilot. That one. Why not? Always be nice to the helicopter pilot. But yeah, So the thing now is playing them against each other. So because whenever this thing assimilates, it burns its clothes or destroys its clothes, which we didn't say earlier, but has happened twice now. They have found people's clothes. And so they are then sabotaging MacReady. So they don't trust him. I think we missed Fuchs disappearing would have happened before now too. And I like that a lot too, because we don't ever see anything with him. We find his glasses later, and that's it. So they literally have a character who just blips out of this movie, and we never see again. And I kind of really love that. There is a deleted scene where they find him impaled against a wall with a shovel, which is just really hardcore. Like someone shoveled him to the wall. And I find that really funny, but they didn't end up going with that. All we do is find Fuchs' glasses. And then we can go forward. I got one more backtrack. Before the thing turns everybody against MacReady, he has this really great monologue where he talks to the radio one more time. He's like, hey, it's been 24 hours. no one is trusting anyone anymore. Like, we're all very tired. And it's like he's talking about how everyone's breaking down. And it's like no one's nice to each other. We don't believe, no one trusts each other. And then that's when Fuchs comes up and is like, hey, everyone should prepare their own meals and only eat out of cans. And that's my last contribute to the movie, and I'm going to disappear now. Yeah, so I just like the seeing of the, like, McCready explaining how everyone's mentally breaking down at this point.
Right. And it gives the audience a clue as well. As like, okay, we don't trust each other anymore. We have people that's disappearing. Clothes are being found. Being found. No traces of anybody. And you're just, and not only that, as a person that's watching this, you're also losing your mind with them, too, because you're also trying to put things together in perspective because you're looking at it through their lenses. So therefore, you're also being with them. Because I'm not just sitting there sitting here watching a movie. I'm actually feeling like the way it's actually shot, the way John Carpenter actually does it, makes me feel like that I'm actually there with them, losing my mind.
And that's what I'm getting at, that really bleak, nihilistic tone. But also, you're only learning as much as they are, so you're getting just as paranoid. And like at any point in the movie, you're like, I don't trust this guy. I don't trust any of them. And so many of them are not very likable either, because all we really got to see of them is just like one time where they're just nice with each other, but they're not even that nice. Like, there's not a lot of like bonding around. You don't really like anybody, and then they all start hating each other, and that brings in Keith David's amazing performance as Childs, because he's kind of the other really strong willed guy like McCready, and he very quickly starts to turn on McCready and not trusting him and things like that. And early Keith David in John Carpenter movies, this performance, and then of course in They Live when he fights Roddy Piper for 6 minutes because he won't put on the glasses. That's one of the best.
That's hands down one of my favorites.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I wanted to do a shout out to Keith David because we're about to get to some Child's stuff. Yeah.
Yep. So the team debates whether to allow McCready inside, but he breaks in and holds the group at bay with dynamite.
Yeah, a stick of dynamite in the flamethrower. and they go, what if we're wrong about him? And Childs goes, then we're wrong. Which just means, then we kill the guy. Who cares?
At least we eliminated one out of the other guys that we have to save everybody else.
Then we're wrong. like, holy crap. All right. Keep going. I won't interrupt you. Go ahead.
No. I definitely like that little touch that you put there, though. But yeah, during the encounter, Norris appears to suffer a heart attack as Copper attempts to defibrillate Norris. His chest transforms into a large mouth and bites off Cooper's arms, killing him. Now, this scene right here gets me every time.
It's one of the best. So this is my favorite effect of all time.
Mine too.
And I'll explain how they did it. And it's so cool. I know I've talked to you about this before. So they brought in a stuntman who was a double amputee. So his arms only came up to his elbows. So the guy's defibrillating Norris, and then the chest opens up, and the chest was actually like high powered. Like, it could have chomped down on your arms. It wouldn't have cut them off, that wasn't sharp, but it would have probably hurt. So what they did is when it opened up, they switched out Norris with the stunt double who's wearing a copper. Switch out Copper with a stunt double who's wearing a copper mask, but the mask didn't look good. So that's why in the effect he's looking away. Like, he's like not looking at the camera because the mask doesn't look good. And he puts his arms down in the thing and they bite. And since he's an amputee and he's wearing fake arms, he can go, Gah! Like that. And that's how they do the effect. It is so cool. Like,
I love it.
Oh, who would have thought of like that amount of practicality of like, all right, we need somebody without arms. We're going to make this work. And it's the effect is so good. And that's only the first 3 seconds of it. Then the head starts to escape from the body because there's a fire there. So the head starts to like turn against and run. like, oh, screw you guys, I'm leaving. Screw
you guys, I'm going home.
Yeah, pretty much. And the Norris face starts like screaming in agony, and you're not sure how much of it is Norris and how much of it isn't, and how much he still has pain and how much of it's the alien, and the thing jumps out of his chest, and it's just so insane. I love it so much. And that's, of course, when the head falls down, sprouts the spider legs, and then the two eyes out of the back or the other side of him, and then goes and hides and tries to scudder away. It is one of the coolest things ever put to film, and I love it in all my heart. Like, I can rewatch that scene millions of times, and I'm like, oh, it's so good. It's so crazy. Like, I love it so much.
I know, that's actually my favorite effect in the whole entire movie, and whenever I see that all the time, it always gets me. Like, I'm expecting it, but it always gets me.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. I knew that was going to come, too. Since I'm like, I believe it. I'm like, he's doing the Carpenter voice.
Yep. So, let's see here. Then we have MacReady. He intersects the Norris thing, but its head is detached, just like you said, and attempts to escape before also being burnt. He proposes testing blood samples from each survivor with a heated piece of wire, and has each man restrained, but is forced to kill Clark after he lunges at MacReady with a scalpel.
Yeah, so this is a really awesome thing. So Clark is the dog guy who, we did miss a scene. So he goes and visits Blair right before. I just love this. So he goes and opens up to talk to Blair, and this is in Blair is in the tool shed, but in the foreground, in front of them is a noose. So Blair just has a noose hanging next to him. But at this point, I'm almost 100% sure that this is Blair Thing, because now he's going, I want to get back inside. Don't you hear me? I'm feeling better now. Let me inside. So you think, okay, maybe, or like, so is the thing trying to imitate like suicide to look more human? Like, it's so crazy. But maybe this scene happens later. Maybe I'm combining the two. But what I was going to get at, besides the news thing, he does tell MacReady to watch Clark because he was alone with that dog. So Blair is really nervous about Clark. And Wilbur Brimley actually gives a really good performance here. Watch Clark and watch him good. You hear me? Like, he says it this really like, oh, wow, you can actually act. That's pretty good. Yeah. All right. So, so Clark is about to go after him with the scalpel, and MacReady, being the fastest man in Antarctica, turns it, boom, blows his head off. That happens so fast. The first time you watch that, you have to go, wait, what just happened? Because they don't even give, because of the way that John Carpenter shoots, they don't give a lot of focus on the scalpel. It shows him from behind, and if you're looking at his hand, you can see it in his hand, and it kind of gives this little glare to it to give attention, but the camera doesn't put a lot of attention on it. So if you're not emphasis on it, no. Yeah. So if you're not looking, you might be like, why did he lunge at him? And this scene's so good.
And I like how they're testing out the blood, and then when you find out that, it's actually, what we said it was. Yeah. But I think this is actually one of my other things. So whenever the blood transforms into the thing, and you actually know it's him now, it actually reminds me of the Faculty, where they were basically testing out who was the alien and who wasn't.
By doing the drugs. The Faculty totally wholeheartedly ripped this scene off. And I don't blame them. It was also Faculty's Robert Rodriguez, right? So an amazing director. Right. Why not rip off another amazing director? So the editing of this scene, now look at me, nerd, talking about editing, is so cool because it's so goofy. Now, if you've never noticed this, go back and watch the scene, because when everyone gets tested, it doesn't show MacReady untie them. It just flips to them with him. So, like, he tries Knowles, and Knowles, like, sighs. And then the next, like, literally the next shot is Knowles with the flamethrower pointing at everybody as he's texting the next guy. And then like it does that. So then Childs is fine, and then he's like, let me out of here, and then it just flips to Gary by himself. Like it does these really goofy edits that I think are fantastic. I don't know why he does these like really, really goofy edits. But then one more thing before we get to actually the thing, is when he checks what's his name, Clark, who he just killed, and the blood doesn't react. So he goes, so he was human, and that makes you a murderer. And McCready doesn't even react. He just goes, yeah, I guess. But he's just like, all right, next one. But like, yeah. But yeah, so I guess I did jump because the polymer thing was the third left. So when you find out that Palmer's the thing, Gary and Childs are still tied up next to him, which is so like he starts to morph, and they're like, "Oh my god!" They're literally tied to a couch directly next to him.
Next to each other.
Yeah. Oh.
Which is.
Yeah.
And you're wondering too, like, how are they going to get out of this situation because they're both tied up to each other, and hopefully the thing won't try and get at that next person that's tied up to him.
Yeah. And instead, he goes for Windows because Windows has a flamethrower and he can't get it moving. And its head opens up like and bites Windows. This effect is probably it's a little goofy, like the way that Windows' body is like flailing. It's a little on the silly side. Like this one, it doesn't quite match the other effects, but I like the head opening up to like not like this, but like sideways. I love the idea that the thing when the thing like cuts loose and doesn't want to look like a human anymore, that he doesn't do things that are conventional for humans, or the thing will open up differently, or random things will sprout from different things, and it's not logical for human standards because it's not a human. And I love that thing. I like that idea that instead of like, he goes, nope, screw it, I'll make a new head or a new mouth. Yeah.
I think it works though, because the thing does not understand humans and the way they work. So
he can imitate them, but like, yeah, and why he doesn't need to. He can sprout a mouth from anywhere,
right?
Or it. But I don't know. I keep genderizing the thing. It doesn't have a gender. It break. They do flamethrower it, and it jumps out of the window, and then McCready hits it with a dynamite. Now, this is another really cool effect because it's not an effect. It's Kurt Russell throwing a dynamite and it exploding. Like, that's how they filmed that. And you can watch because the explosion is way more powerful than they planned, because Kurt Russell flies up against the wall and looks like he gets knocked out because the explosion's huge. And they're like, all right, yeah, just throw the dynamite. So you just see him like, boom. Holy crap. Like, that wasn't acting.
I could just see Kurt going, I need a cigarette after this.
Yeah, dude, that was messed up. All right, do it again.
Right. Hey, Kurt, take two.
Yeah, we weren't filming. I'll kill you guys.
You're fucking kidding me. But yeah.
All right, so after that it flips back, and then there's a couple guys still tied to the couch. And yeah, so I don't know how far you want to go, but I want to get up to just when they untie Gary, because Gary has this great line.
I'll let you do the untying part too. I'll let you do this.
So everybody gets untied, and there's the cool edits which I talked about out of order. My bad. And then when it gets to the last one, which is Gary, they test him and he's fine. So there was only one thing, and so Gary's the last one. And then he goes, if you guys don't mind, I would not want to spend the rest of this winter tied to this couch. Look, this is great scream. Oh my god. I like that all of them do have their moments of just great acting in there. But yeah, so that's how we now know that the humans that are left, there's not many. So it's Gary, Childs, McCready, and Knowles. And we do know that they are humans, right? Because they all passed the test. Right. So the only person who they haven't tested is Blair. So then they're going to go do that next. I want to do one more tangent, not a long one. In the book, it's actually like 30 people when they start to do this test. There's a bunch of people. And there's like 8 or 9 that are things. And whenever they find one, all the humans gang up on them and start tearing it apart. And it's like this really dark part of the book where by the time like they're on the, after they've like ripped apart 8 things, they all start to get bloodlusty. And they're like, oh, I want the next guy to fail so we can rip him to shreds. And it gets like this really like kind of psycho mob mentality in the book. And I really want the book to be more properly adapted cast-wise, specifically for this scene, for the blood test scene, to be 30 people and for them to tear each other apart. Because that sounds so batshit crazy that I'm like, oh, I want to see that in a movie.
You see, though, for me, though, I think that the isolation of just having those characters in there works for me. Having too many people,
it's not going to take away this movie. We still have this, but I want the batshit crazy one too. I'll watch both.
I gotcha. But yeah, so now we have Childs. He's left on guard while the others go test Blair, but they find that he has escaped and has been using vehicle components to assemble a small flying saucer.
He made a flying saucer in the basement. Yeah, fuck it, why not?
And,
Blair.
Which they destroy upon their return. Childs is missing, and the power generator is destroyed, leaving the men without heat. McReady speculates that with no escape left, the Thing intends to return to hibernation until a rescue team arrives. McReady, Gary, and Knowles agree that the Thing cannot be allowed to escape and set explosives to destroy the station, but the Blair Thing kills Gary and Knowles disappears.
Yeah, so we don't see Knowles. He just like walks off and we don't ever see him again. So back to the generator, it's another really crazy line what I love. Because Gary goes, he's like, what about the generator? He goes, it's gone. And McCready's like, what? He goes, it's gone, McCready. Like, it's just not there. He's like, what are you talking? It's gone. Like, so the whole power generator just gone. Like, oh. Like, can we fix it? It's gone.
On. It's on here, as in, like...
It left. The power generator left. Oh, no. And again, I love the weird mysteries of just characters disappearing out of the movie. Of, like, Knowles is just like, all right, I'm going to go check over here. And we just don't see him again for the rest of the movie. It's so nuts. And I love the fact that I've seen this movie so many times and so many other people have seen it a million times and we don't know what happened in it. Like, because the movie doesn't tell us. Like, we don't really know what happens in this movie because so many things are just left completely untold and it's just up to us to guess. So Blair had to become a thing at some point, but we're not sure when. And when he grabs Gary, he digs his fingers into his like face, and that's another effect that messes with me. Where I'm like, like he burrows into him, like, oh my god. And also, he doesn't have a beard anymore. For some reason, Blair Thing is clean shaven.
Maybe the Thing decided to shave to be part
of this mustache.
Gillette.
Been wanting to do that since I met the guys.
But the dynamite stuff, when they go down there to detonate the bombs and stuff like that, there's actually a thing in the trivia where I mentioned that basically it burnt part of Kurt Russell's beard or something like that, I think.
Oh, maybe. I guess I've never noticed. I believe it, though. Yeah, there's so many explosions, and he has such a main... So we get to where are we at, the Blair Thing now?
Yeah,
right?
we're at the climax now. Where basically they're setting up the bombs, and then they're getting ready to blow it up, and that's when we see the Thing, the actual true form of the Thing.
Yeah, it's a nice mixture of all the animals, like dog, human, everything, and a lot of non-human, and you can see faces all molded into it. The Blair thing, as a lot of people call it, but it's like the final thing that they meet. He is just I love it. I love how he looks. I think it's just like one of the most terrifying, just like amalgamation monsters. Like you can see just a bunch of different, dog tongues make up part of it, and then all this stuff, and it's like, what are we looking at? Oh yeah. And can I say McCready's best line ever? Because it's great.
Yeah, because I love this line. Yeah.
He's running away from it, and then he does a ninja roll for no reason. Like he jumps and does like a somersault for no reason, because fuck yeah. And then the thing like growls at him, and then he lights it down and goes, "Yeah, well, fuck you too." Just throws it. Yeah, I had an old show where we did my favorite FUs in all movies, and that was one of them. Yeah, fuck you too. So dang good. Yeah.
But yeah, that's actually that's actually the best way to do an F-bomb is whenever Kurt does that line. And then, when you see the size of this thing though too, it's like, how the hell are they going to do this? And are they going to get in time enough to where they can actually make this thing explode? And of course, we wind up getting the explosion, and
this fireball is amazing. Yeah.
But the Blair thing kills Gary, and Knowles disappears. The Blair thing transforms into an enormous creature and breaks the detonator, but McReady triggers the explosives with a stick of dynamite, destroying the station.
Yep. Now, the fireball that it makes when the station blows up is also a shot where I'm like, oh, so like it's a real giant fireball. Like none of it's computer graphics. They made a huge mushroom cloud in the middle of Canada when they filmed this. It's so cool.
It looks so awesome though. It's like an explosion for 4th of July. If you think about it.
Just like that fireball, bow to that fireball. It's your god now.
But yeah, Charles returns as McReady, sits by the burning remnants, saying he got lost in the storm while pursuing Blair, exhausted and slowly freezing to death. They acknowledge that the brutality of their distrust and share a bottle of Scotch, a whiskey, and then, of course, credits start playing.
Yeah, so it ends super bleak. It's just those two guys about to slowly freeze to death. And a child shows up out of nowhere, so of course, do you think that Childs is a thing? Like I do think that Childs is a thing. There is a lot of fan theories onto that.
But I do have some confirmation now because
there's kind of confirmation. Yeah.
Carpenter actually said that he's actually human.
Yep, but he also has once said that he's a thing too.
Right. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, Carpenter once said that at least one of them isn't. Carpenter's kind of said everything. So there is the cool fan theory that he actually has not whiskey, he has like gasoline in it because he doesn't actually take a drink. And then when he offers it to Childs and Childs drinks it, he laughs like McCready, like, and a lot of people think that that's a callback to the first scene where he gives the cheating bitch a drink, and that's how he knows. So a lot of people think that that's I don't know if I fully subscribe to that. I think it's funny, but like it's cute, but I don't know. I do think that Childs is a thing, but most importantly, it doesn't matter because if he is a thing, he's going to freeze. If he's not, they're both going to freeze. And like, there's a video game that takes place after this. There's comic books that take place after this. But if you want to look at the movie as its own thing, which I do, it wasn't made with the video game in mind, right? Like the video game was 30 years later or whatever. I do love it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Like they stopped it from going further. Let's just freeze to death. Like it's such a sad and like technically they're heroes and they save the world, but it sure doesn't feel like it. There's nothing glorious and fun
No, because if you think of it like this, if some other people just randomly come out there and then they see it, they're just like, okay, these guys also lost their minds, so they have no clue at what they just stopped, other than the two people that are dead, freezing to
Yeah.
death.
Yeah, probably
But
dead by the time anyone comes. Yeah.
But yeah, the
Unless,
only ones that we know that are heroes is the audience who's watching it knows that they are heroes, which is
yeah,
like the sad thing in a sense. But yeah,
it's like I said, it's just so bleak, and I love it. The first time I watched it, it was so nihilistic, where I was like, yeah, nothing matters. Whoa,
take a drink of your
yay!
old scotch.
And I love the music, which we didn't ever really get into. I want to say I can't remember who did the music, but I have a name in my head, but it's not. I don't want to say it. But it has this really good boom boom, and a lot of times whenever there's a thing or something weird's going on, it plays these great bass lines that dun dun, and it plays it right as the credits kind of go. And yeah, I don't know. I love so much of this movie, especially the music. But yeah, and I love that bleak. Technically it's a win, but is it a win? Everybody dies ending.
Okay, so music is actually by Ennio Morricone. I think that's how you say that.
Yeah, Macroni. That was not the name I was going to. So yeah, all right.
Okay.
Well, cool. There's a shout out to him. But yeah, I love this ending, and I love this movie, and I'm glad I get to just talk about it for an hour with you. Can you tell that? I know you can't tell, but I haven't watched it in months. I was able to pull all that on the top of my head.
You do better than I did, because I've only seen this movie maybe twice or 3 times. But here's the thing, though. I really like the bleak ending. I was okay with it because of the fact it doesn't matter, like you mentioned, if since they killed it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if one of them, because of the fact either they're wind up freezing to death, or the other thing too is the thing also dies too. So therefore, you have that ending of interpretation. So I definitely like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So did you watch this the first time when you reviewed it your first time, like a couple months ago, right? Did you? I remember you not loving it. What was your first reaction? And be completely honest. You don't have to lie just because I'm a fanatic.
No. Okay. First thing was like, I thought this was overrated, and I remember saying it was overrated. But then I'm like, am I just being grumpy because of the fact I worked 8 hours and I'm trying to watch this movie that's about these men who are stranded on?
Also, it's super involved. You can't half-ass watch this movie.
No,
like you have to
definitely
really, you have to really give it attention. Also, now before this is why I fight against the overrated thing. It was panned by critics. It was hated. It failed at the box office, and for the longest time, people hated this movie. And it wasn't until like it kind of got a cult following and people started going back to it. And it slowly, especially with internet culture, slowly started getting up. So now it's considered a classic. It was not a classic when we were growing up. It wasn't. Like, we didn't own it. Like, it was very much a cult classic. Now it's a classic. It's a bona fide classic. People think this is one of the best horror movies of all time. So before you go back to the, like, that's why I will fight against the overrated thing. It's like, no, this was hated forever.
Right. Well, I'm just talking about like overrated as people loving it now compared to where it was before.
And I'm sure you've heard me rant about it before you ever watched it too. Like, yeah.
But here's the thing, though. Watching it about 3 or 4 other times, I ended up loving it because of the fact I was able to be in tune with it and to be able to change my mind at the fact that it was overrated. I was just me being grumpy because I haven't slept in God knows how long and just taking it out on this movie. But once I was dialed into it, once I got the tone of it, once I understood McGrady, once I understood these characters, I was in this with them 110%, and I love this movie.
Yeah, cool. I'm glad you turned around on it, and
I'm glad I gave it a second chance.
I didn't watch it until I was probably like 30 years old. Like, I didn't grow up with this movie, and then because I'm kind of started watching a lot of horror YouTube channels, and then people talking about it, I'm like, all right. What's the thing? All right, let's watch it. And like, I knew it was John Carpenter, and I wasn't like a huge John Carpenter head either. And the first time I watched it, I was just completely blown away. And I walked in knowing most of the twists, but not all of them. And to this day, it is my like middle of the winter, can't leave because it's too cold movie. Like, this movie's so cold. Like, you can't watch this movie without feeling cold.
It's a perfect wintertime movie.
It's, yeah, like when I watch it around New Year's, and then I watch it again in February when it's like -30 where I live. And I'm like, we can't leave the house because we literally will freeze to death. I'm going to watch The Thing. And my wife's like, oh, I'm going to go downstairs and watch Greek. I'm like, all right, you go watch Greek for the 30th time. I'm going to watch The Thing. I'm going to go watch Gilmore Girls alone. Bye. I'm going to watch The Thing. So, but yeah. I'm glad you turned around on it, and I am really happy that you invited me on to talk about it because I love this movie, and I also don't really talk about horror movies on my channel that much, so it's fun to really get to rant about it.
I'm glad that you wanted to do this review with me. I'm glad that I gave you the open floor to be able to talk about it and geek out about this. Yeah. Because I love having people on here that are passionate about stuff, and also me being passionate about this film too. But you're one of the, I'm going to quote someone here that you all know, but you're like the sweatiest person.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it comes from The Thing. But yeah.
Well, I do feel like there's a lot of like, there's a couple of those movies that I'm like kind of synonymous with. And it's like same with when you did Scream movies. I was like, hey, if you do the Scream movies without me, like bring me in as much as you can. And then when I literally thought you were mad at me the first time you reviewed The Thing because you didn't. I know you don't have a vindictive bone in your body, and I know you're one of the nicest people in the world. But I did a live stream. And I was about to go live, and then I saw that you were live. I'm like, what are you watching? And he's like, he's reviewing The Thing right now? And I was, what did I do, John? And I was like, seriously thought you were like, oh, he's doing a show. I'll review his favorite movie without him. Like, I was like, what?
You know what? You'll be like the meme that I see about the woman. I wonder what he's thinking about.
Yeah, pretty much. I was like, are you mad at me? You're like, wait, what did I do?
Right. But nah, it was just bad timing and everything. But I'm glad we managed to work this out because
the world doesn't revolve around me. It's fine. Sometimes I think it does.
But man, it's always a privilege to have you on here. I really mean that. I love chatting with you, geeking out with you. Do you have anything going on as far as your channel goes or anything?
Yeah, we're not talking about movies over there, but I am doing a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire, so Game of Thrones characters. I just put out a video on Sigourney of Fen, which is a character who didn't make it into the movies or the TV shows, didn't make it into Game of Thrones. Then I got one coming out this week for Donald Noy, who's another character. I don't cover characters who make it onto the TV shows, but he was a Game of Thrones character from the books who was a one-armed smith. And then I also am going to rank my top 10 fools, like court fools, jesters, of the Game of Thrones universe. So those are my two videos coming out this week, is my top 10 fools and my Donald Noy video. And I've just been diving back into A Song of Ice and Fire content, and it's been really good. It's been really fun. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Tomorrow night, I will be joined by Beth from the Made for Movie TV podcast. We're going to be reviewing John Candy's The Great Outdoors at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time for that one. Then, of course, Rossi has her show coming up on the 7th. You guys do not want to miss this one because Rossi will be joined by Big V of Nappy Roots. And the matter of fact, that's actually going to be happening at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then on the 15th, I'll be joined by the Black Power Rangers comedians on the show. And it's going to be a large group of people of 6 or 7 comedians. And we're going to be reviewing the Power Rangers movie.
Oh, fun.
90s. So this is going to be a chance for me to geek out.
Oh, the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie? Oh, man. I've been like having such a weird urge to rewatch that movie because the fight scenes are so bonkers.
It definitely is. Like, I've seen one part where one of the bad guys try to hit one of the Power Rangers, and the Power Rangers are not even getting hit. They're just flying back.
Yeah. And I like there's a momentumless bicycle kick like Liu Kang, but he gets stopped and then he just stays in the air and starts kicking until he gets momentum. And I'm like, that's not reality. You don't get to just stop. Ah, dang it. Oh, I'll try again. I had that memory as a kid. I'm like, oh, I gotta rewatch that.
But no, on the 17th, I will be doing a Flash spoiler review. And that's going to be at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time with ACS Universe with Anthony. You know, that's going to be fire and that's going to be dope.
Fire.
So,
yeah, I love Anthony.
I do too, man. He's great.
Yeah.
But that's going to be it as far as the show goes. So don't forget to smash that like button. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Don't forget to visit Taco at Let's Talk About Something. So
something to talk about. Sorry, let me
something to talk about.
Something to talk about. There you go.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, it's all right. I've enjoyed being over here at Uniting the Movie Lovers. It's been really good.
Thank you. It's a privilege to have you. And always until next time, guys. Thank you, everyone in the comments section. Jamie, thank you. Keep putting out that fire on your channel in the front row. You might want to sit in the front row while you watch her stuff. Otherwise, she's going to, if you're not a Walking Dead fan, she's going to tell you where you can stick it. So, without further ado, let's go on ahead. We're going to be closing out now, and bye-bye.